Welcome back. I'm Peter St. Honest. This is a weekly roundup of my daily videos on the economy and freedom, where I cut through the BS and lay out what the gaslighting clowns pulled out of their hats this week and what is coming next. New York's communist mayor is ready to seize the means of production, starting with those capitalist roaders, the landlords. And like Lenin and Trotsky, pre-ice pick Trotsky, Comrade Mamdani will not be handing the properties to the proletariat laboring under the chains of capitalism, but to the party in the form of New York City's empire of NGO nonprofits that do for America what the Bolsheviks did for Russia. Last week, Mayor Mamdani pledged a crackdown on bad landlords, saying the city will transfer ownership to, quote, responsible stewards, including community land trusts and nonprofit NGOs. He also announced a plan to blow $100 billion New York does not have on 200,000 units of public housing, while simultaneously canceling it by imposing rent control on even more private units. Note, New York City is already running a $12 billion deficit, so they're going to need a lot more taxes in case you're thinking of trading your Upper West Side condo above the dog therapist for some Miami heat. Now, to be fair, Zoran told New York voters he would do this. In an interview during COVID, he said his end goal is, quote, seizing the means of production, later adding that socialism will work this time because, quote, we will bring in the best and brightest to deliver it. Note, this is standard, non-working socialism. The Soviets used an army of Ph.D.s to essentially plan. Oddly enough, the people still starved. So the background is Zoran largely won his election on housing because New York is one of the most expensive cities in the U.S., in fact, in the world. The median one-bedroom rent in New York City just hit $4,700 a month. That kind of price should pull condo developers like a moth to flame. Instead, New York housing units have been growing at just half the rate of population growth for 50 years. Thanks to the precise anti-landlord measures on which Zoran is going all in. So union mandates, climate mandates, licensing hell, touch a wire or a pipe and you're looking at months of permits. Heaven help you if you renovate without a check to Tony Soprano. All with rent control to make sure landlords cannot make a dime for all the hassle. This has left roughly 50,000 New York apartments empty and rotting despite a vacancy rate of 1.4%. Now, Mamdani could have done what Javier Milei did in Buenos Aires, getting rid of all the red tape, which slashed rents by 2/3 and doubled housing stock on the market. Instead, Mamdani is sending code enforcement to seize the means of production. This will obviously make New York housing worse. What landlord is going to take the risk? That drives up prices beyond $4,700 a month. It increases shortages beyond half of population growth. But it gives Mamdani ammunition for his next campaign, where the low-information voters of New York get to shoot themselves in the other foot. So it's next tempting to say Mamdani is just a moron, that maybe if he cracked an economics textbook, he'd figure it out. Alas, handing over these seizures to NGOs gives the game away. Like every blue city social crisis, from homeless encampments to migrant hotels to scam-leering centers, the crisis is the excuse to rain trillions on the NGOs and nonprofits who run these cities into the ground. Japan is set to import 800,000 third-world migrants, of whom 40% could be from Bangladesh. Japanese voters don't want this, of course. In fact, it's a major reason the current Prime Minister won, promising to crack down on migration. But big business in Japan is addicted to third-worlders, handing taxpayers the bill for whatever mayhem they wreak upon what is, for now, one of the highest trust societies on earth. This all despite the Japanese government recently announcing the farm population of Japan hit a record 4.1 million, rising nearly 400,000 on the year, or 10%. Meanwhile, native Japanese actually declined by nearly 1 million last year because they are not having children. Fun fact, if that keeps up, Japan's got precisely 33 years until it is majority migrant. Now, considering Japan's got a third of the population in the U.S., 4.1 million in Japan is equivalent to 12 million in the U.S. Worse, 90% of Japan's migrants are from the third world, working menial jobs at factories when they're not peeing on shrines, shoplifting, or rioting in the Tokyo suburbs. Sadly, not a joke. Parts of Tokyo are already third world, Shinokubo, Nishikibukuro, and it's spreading to the countryside, with some cities outside Tokyo now 1/5 third worlder. This army of low-skilled workers has driven blue-collar wages to where 7-Eleven pays $8 an hour in Tokyo, and they are, of course, increasingly staffed by Bangladeshis. It's about to get a lot worse, with the ruling LDP planning to import another 820,000 low-skilled third-worlders to drag down wages in everything from rice farming to janitors and home health aides to Indian truckers. Hide your mini cars. This is all disappointing, since Japan's prime minister actually ran against mass migration, but once she came to office, she trimmed that program by just 2%, keeping the other 98%. This all despite surveys showing Japanese voters overwhelmingly want fewer migrants and stricter enforcement on illegals, which are exploding in Japan. Interestingly, opposition to mass migration in Japan is strongest among the young, which are normally the most globalist. A Yomiuri survey last year found 80% of young Japanese think mass migration is hurting public safety. Interestingly, while just 30% of Japanese approve of President Trump, he is, after all, America first, not Japan first, but a majority of young Japanese approve of Trump's immigration policies. Now, the background here is Japan's establishment has conducted a decades-long jihad to push mass migration, claiming it's needed because of labor shortages, with Japanese having just over one child per woman. This is false, of course. Mass migration does nothing to solve labor shortages. We annex Canada tomorrow. We do not have 20 million extra workers. Immigrants cancel each other. What you do get is too many low-skilled workers and a matching shortage of high-skilled workers, dentists, teachers, neurosurgeons, who, alas, did not sneak in illegally. Moreover, there's 12 million able-bodied Japanese who are not working, which is 3 times the migrant army. Half of young Japanese are underemployed, not surprising at $8 an hour. Last, Japan's entire political class peddles the myth of the necessary Bangladeshi. Japan's left likes it for the NGO grants and eventually left-wing voters. Japan's right likes it because corporate donors love cheap labor. All this while Japanese are stuck living at home into their 40s instead of starting a family that might help solve the birth crisis. So as next, like the West, Japanese are being goose-stepped into third world wages and shattered social trust. Japan's not Europe yet, but Japan also does not have anywhere near the watchdog community we do in the U.S. that holds politicians' feet to the fire. Instead, most Japanese throw up their hands and hope for the best. Unfortunately, when population replacement is 33 years away, Japan needs to wake up fast. A word from our sponsor. If you own gold, and many of you do, you already understand how it protects your wealth from the insanity coming out of Washington. The inflation, the recessions, the wars. But with monetary metals, there's a way to actually earn a yield of up to 4% on your gold, paid in more ounces of gold. You retain ownership of real, allocated physical gold with no storage costs while your ounces grow every month outside the banking system. If you're serious about protecting your future and building your legacy, head to monetarymetals.com/Peter to get started. One of the best ways to secure your Bitcoin is with a hardware wallet, a physical device that lets you keep your coins offline without internet connection. One of the most trusted names in hardware wallets is CoinKite, maker of the famous block clock. CoinKite devices are made in Canada and they're run by passionate Bitcoiners who've been at this since 2012, back when Bitcoiners were trading in person at swap meets. You can pick up hardware wallets and plenty of other goodies at coinkite.com/ProfSaintAnge. That's CoinKite.com/ProfSaintAnge. Okay, back to our show. Young college graduates are terrified of artificial intelligence. Americans in general are more worried about losing their job than any time in modern history, even worse than the 2008 crisis. Will we be dumpster diving for universal basic income while ChatGPT takes our job, our girl, and our pickup truck? Gallup recently found nearly 1 in 5 American workers think their job will be automated out of existence, a near record and worse than the depths of the 2008 financial crisis. when companies were slashing workers. Meanwhile, a recent speaker at University of Central Florida was all but booed off stage for praising AI, something that probably does not happen at the annual HVAC conference. The odd thing is AI has barely showed up in the numbers 13 years into the alleged Armageddon. Unemployment is better than 80% of years. According to BLS, layoffs are substantially below pre-COVID, also at a historic low. The holy grail of job danger, job quits, is in the best third of the time since 2001, yet workers are terrified worse than 2008. Interestingly, Gallup's survey found companies that do adopt AI are actually more likely to increase hires than non-adopters, implying that AI is creating jobs. This may seem odd, but it's a well-known economic phenomenon that when your workers get more productive, say if you replace shovels with bulldozers, you take on more work and the product gets better, which are called new good effects. So imagine a company using shovels to build homes. They find a shipload of bulldozers, they will build a lot more homes. Or take web designers who were supposed to be obsolete 30 years ago when automation tools came out. Instead, web designers have increased for 30 years because websites went from GeoCities to glossy infinite scrolls with built-in shopping carts. Now, Trump's former AI czar, David Sachs, recently posted a chart showing job postings for software engineers, which is supposedly ground zero for AI, are outrunning regular job postings by 15% in the past year. That's driven by a 14x rise in software production going by GitHub. In other words, even in software engineering, companies are hiring more because AI is replacing tasks. Makes it cheaper, you can sell a lot more product. Now, it's not all sunshine and puppies because there are millions of workers who are going to take it on the chin with AI, including the 20 million cubicle dwellers who make up the guts of most large organizations, and above all, new college grads with generalist degrees who used to make up that cubicle army. According to Brookings, roughly 80% of these soon-to-be useless generalists are women who disproportionately choose useless degrees in psychology or the humanities, setting up an interesting dynamic where AI guts college-educated women but boosts men working blue collars and the trades. Now, most college degrees are not actually threatened. About half are in health, nursing, engineering, science, and IT. Those get boosted by AI, shovels to bulldozers, 14x software. Another fifth of degrees are in business, which can be repurposed if the product's growing 14x. The roadkill is the one-third of majors that are both useless and hard to recycle. So humanities, art, social sciences, psychology, journalists. Notably, these are the precise people who write AI doom porn. Finally, the good news, blue collars, the half of Americans who don't graduate college. AI is already boosting these, so PricewaterhouseCoopers estimates 4.7 million construction jobs building AI data centers, of which nearly 1 million will be permanent in maintenance. Meanwhile, if AI productivity grows the economy, that boosts how much stuff we have. How many factories, second homes, these all boost the trades across the board since ChatGPT cannot install HVAC. So at Sex, AI won't kill jobs, it will redistribute them from rich, Democrat, white collars to blue-collar plebs, meaning the doom porn and the terrified workers who believe it will continue. The far right has a terrifying new weapon. Beautiful women, hide your sons. So says the Telegraph mouthpiece of Britain's ruling class in a hilarious screed warning that, quote, photogenic influencers are changing the face of a movement once considered the preserve of angry, bald men. As a cheerful bald man, put me down as offended. Now, you may recall last year's far-right panic was the men who go to the gym, presumably because pumping iron gets you out of the cuck chair. Of course, I'm speaking figuratively. The gym panic was followed closely by men who play video games and Hispanic men who apparently are going white supremacist faster than Democrats can import them. The background here is the left has spent a generation telling young people they are broken, doomed, oppressed, anxious, traumatized, medicated, and morally obligated to be miserable. This is textbook Bolshevism, where you unite the outsiders to topple the insiders, to usher in the communist utopia where nobody's racist, greedy, or carbon footprinty. Half of this is uniting the existing outsiders, the junkies, pedophiles, sociology majors. The other half is finding new outsiders, import them when you can, otherwise cut off their genitals. This carnival of freaks is then shocked when normal people walk away, so pretty girls, gym bros, church kids, young dads, even bald guys. Because the outsider manufacturing victim cult only appeals to people who've already given up on themselves. If you've still got goals in life, hitting the gym, building a family, building a career or a business, owning your future beats circle jerking how you're a carbon-emitting meat sack living on stolen land. So the left has already turned the heavy guns on the beauties. Last week, Britain's socialist regime banned entry by a trio of strikingly telegraphic women, including American Valentina Gomez, Spain's Ada Yuch, and Dutch activist Eva Vlaardingerbroek. Indeed, in Europe, any attractive right-wing woman is now Nazi Barbie if she's blonde, MAGA Barbie if she's brunette, redheads get insurrection Barbie. The reason, of course, is the ruling class can dismiss bald men as reactionary speed bumps on the road to serfdom, but hot women hits them where it hurts. Partly because college girls have always been the main draw of left-wing protests, speaking as a teenage communist. But more important, young women are the stormtroopers of the left. In the U.S., young single women are the only group who chose Kamala. In Germany, the openly communist Die Linke has nearly 40% of young female voters, while the anti-migrant AfD is the biggest party for young men. The UK is even more extreme. Young women are 3 times more likely to vote for the communist-adjacent Greens. They're half as likely to vote for Britain's biggest right populist party, Reform, so that is a 6x delta. In short, young women are the revolution, meaning the Barbies have got to go. So what's next? The left has built a coalition of aggrieved, self-declared losers. The right is accidentally building a coalition of normal people who go outside. The normal people are winning, which is what's truly terrifying to the Telegraph. A word from our sponsor. Stocks and even gold are all over the place. If you're ready to diversify, Abundant Minds makes Bitcoin mining simple, transparent, and human. You can deduct every penny thanks to Trump's big beautiful bill. It's a 401k for Bitcoin mining. Founded by husband-wife team Bo and Christine Marie Turner after losing $500,000 to broken promises in the mining industry, Abundant Minds was built to protect investors. You own the machines, and they make it turnkey with hosting in their facilities in Oregon. Pricing is clear with one flat monthly fee and no surprises, and they guarantee uptime so you keep earning day in, day out. If you want easy diversification without pressure, learn more at abundantminds.com/Peter to get some of your first Bitcoin mined for free as a gift to my audience. The biggest risk in Bitcoin isn't volatility, it is custody. Because Bitcoin removes the safety net, there is no bank to call, no reset button if something goes wrong. The reality is, most people are not properly set up. They hold Bitcoin but rely on exchanges, incomplete wallet setups, and have no real plan for privacy or inheritance. This is exactly what the Bitcoin way solves. They help you move from exposure to actual ownership, self-custody done right, privacy, inheritance, even running your own node, all set up with you step by step. They never touch your Bitcoin. They're your support team. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Peter to book a free call and go from where you are today to a much stronger setup. Now back to our show. Latin America is going based as Colombia's populist Abelardo de la Espriella, nicknamed El Tigre, the Tiger, won the first round of the presidential election, putting him at 80% odds of winning Colombia's presidency in 3 weeks, according to prediction market Kalshi. Now, this is interesting because Tiger's an open admirer of Nayib Bukele, El Salvador's populist leader and Trump ally, who famously cut the murder rate by 98%, taking Salvador from literally the most violent country in the world, worse than Haiti, to safer than New Hampshire, and earning Bukele approval ratings in the 90s, according to independent polling. Salvadoran children can now play in the street, unlike, say, Chicago. Grandmas can nap at the park. Young women can go out at night. I was actually in El Salvador 2 years ago for Bukele's inauguration, and every Salvadoreño I talked to beamed with pride. Now, this would all be a welcome change for Colombia, which has a left-wing government friendly to cartels and street crime, with the murder rate running around Baltimore levels, which is 15 times Salvador. Encouragingly, it's not just Colombia. Bukelismo is spreading across Latin America, scoring 70 to 80% support across the region, perhaps because voters enjoy not being robbed, which baffles the elite like a dog watching a magic trick. Chile's new leader is an open admirer of Bukele, as is Ecuador's. Argentina's Javier Milei is a close friend, and they've been trading ideas. Honduras already implemented Bukele reforms. Costa Rica just jumped on the bandwagon. Of course, lower crime is just one part of populism, whether it's Bukele or Trump. It's also smaller government, less corruption, cutting red tape to boost job creation, handing economic power to small business instead of backroom cartels. And that is where the trouble starts, because even if you convince the voters, you hit the wall of ideological judges and legislatures. Bukele himself was blocked by judges, which may sound familiar to Americans, by hostile Congress, which may also sound familiar. He solved it by winning a landslide in Congress and using it to replace the left-wing judges, a solution that, alas, would require Trump getting 2/3 of Congress. Similar story in Argentina, where Milei didn't have enough Congress to override left-wing judges who blocked some of his major reforms, and Brazil, where left-wing judges effectively mounted a coup, stealing the election, then sentencing populist Bolsonaro to 27 years in prison for saying nice things about Jan 6-style Stop These Steal protests. Put it together, Latin America is turning populist, led by crime and corruption. But even where the populists do win, like in the United States, they are up against a gauntlet of left-wing judges, meaning they, like us, need to win big to fix it. So as expert, the genius of democracy is it's a pressure valve. But when it's blocked by censorship or ideological judges, the pressure builds, the people get angrier. Best case, elections are fair enough that populists can win supermajorities to remove bad judges like El Salvador. Worst case, the judges keep blocking until presidents start ignoring them, at which point the people welcome Caesar. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and go to petersanons.com for daily videos and in-depth articles with charts and all the gory details. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.